amazing 25 degrees, feeling like 22, clear sky, clean air, sun playing hide and seek. It's beautiful, and and I keep saying this again and again, and probably it's kind of relevant also today, that when this pandemic is anyway now coming to an end, and I hope so it is, and when we tend to restart everything, and I hope that we could be more resilient and we could be more low carbon, and maybe we could pick up this discussion for another day, but something we should all ponder upon, and I very strongly feel on this particular thing. you know the idea is social marketing. And when Hari came up with this particular topic, and he said, Deepak, can we do a conversation here? And it immediately made us think that what are we doing at CEO Lounge? And we felt that, here at CEO Lounge, we're trying to create a community that believes in a world where interactions can champion multiple social justice issues as well. And so it is just not about people. It is also about inspiring the world, that we can make it better today and much better tomorrow. So yes, there is a social marketing aspect into everybody's brand and everybody's life, into whatever you're doing. And I think this pandemic has also also affected the change of the behavior of people in a very big way. And it has started making us think that as a customer, on how is it really impacting us, and what should we do that it should actually better the life of us and people around us. So we, and the brands, I would say, are also working to humanize their businesses, and which is very nice. I mean, you look at the campaigns today or everything, I think there is a bit of a humanized effect into this. And I think we got an extremely a fantastic panel today to really talk about this particular subject, and everybody is working. I was in a conversation last weekend, and somebody brought up a lemon trees example that, and I'm sure Ratna would speak more about this. And I'm certain that today's discussion, we will have a multiple takeaways. So let me do a quick introduction for everybody, and then I'll hand over to Vidu to take forward the discussion. Yeah. So we got Aratna Lal. Aratna is the Vice President for Brand Communication Sustainability Initiatives at Lemon Tree. MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, and then she decided to get into the hotels, and she has worked into sales and marketing, corporate communication, sustainability, and I think she has done some amazing work at Lemon Tree, and I'll leave it to Aradhana to speak about this as a conversation progresses. Then we got Hari Thalapalli. Hari is the CEO for Call Health, a multidisciplinary leader with over 3 decades of experience in technology and healthcare space. And prior to healthcare, Call Health, he was with Mahindra Satyam and Tech Mahindra. So Hari, welcome, and would love to hear what's happening at your end. We got Vidhu Sagar. Vidhu is the managing director for Media Donuts in India, and previously he has held leadership positions at Lintas, GTB, FCB Ulka, Kara Media, and so on. So he's one of the top voices in the advertising and the marketing world. Would be good to hear Vidhu today. Then we got Kavita Rao. Kavita is the country commercial manager for IKEA in India, and she oversees the entire sales and marketing and customer experience for the company. And she's held leadership positions at HUL, Infosys, Capgemini before that. And I was reading somewhere about the IKEA's social entrepreneurship program. I think that's very, very interesting, and would be good to hear from Kavita on that and multiple other things as well. Then we got Manish Mandana. Manish is the garment manufacturer, and he was recently also the CEO for Being Human. And he runs a company called the Mandana Retail Ventures Limited. And, he's done over the 2 decades of his being into the entrepreneur business world. He's worked in about 60 odd countries. And he launched Being Human clothing brand and made it one of the India's fastest growth stories in the retail world. And he, would be good to hear from Manish what he did in that front and what else is happening in his life. So, gentlemen, Kavita, Aradhana, a very warm welcome again. And I'll take the best seat, hear the conversation, and probably join you guys at the end of the chat. If you do, please.
Thank you, Deepak. I hope all of us can see each other and hear each other well. So just a nod in acceptance would be fine. Lovely. Okay, so great to meet all of you. Very excited. Aradhana, Hari, Kavita, and Manish. So first up, uh, just in terms of how we progress during this session, this one is a little different. So just to get everyone on board, unlike the webinars which have become the norm these days, which are open to hundreds of disinterested, indifferent phone scrolling viewers. This one is just us, the 6, 7 garrulous folks that we are on a quiet Saturday morning when the world is either sleeping in or nursing a hangover, having this closed door, profound discussion, uh, whose highlights, as Deepak mentioned before, I guess Hari will work on, and these discussions will essentially form part of a paper that CEO Lounge would be bringing out soon. So let's discuss all of our views on this subject. Uh, Once again, we are talking about marketing for maximizing social impact. Since there are different interpretations possible to this, let me just try and sort of clarify a little. Let's just clear the air. It's a slightly unusual subject, admittedly, and yet a very fertile area for investigation. So let me try and break it up just for simplicity, so that all of us are around the same page and we have a good and clear understanding of what's really at hand. So essentially, we are situated at this intersection. If it's like a Venn diagram, we are talking about marketing on one side and social impact on the other. We're trying to see what's the intersection or overlap area here. Marketing, as we all know, is fundamentally about creating, selling, and delivering products and services of value, and that's of course done to your chosen target audiences, the most valuable target audiences, and it's always, of course, return. There is an expectation of return, which is a price. Very simple. In contrast, the social impact programs that we're talking about, and this time I'd urge you to think broader than just the COVID related subjects here, since it might be a pertinent context here, but it shouldn't become a limiting one. So social impact initiatives, whether they're about support for environment, energy, poverty, hunger, children differently abled, or anything else that's socially relevant for that matter. These campaigns, don't necessarily deliver a tangible, immediate value in return. At least, not in the short run, since they do have a long gestation in any case. Let's think of the context broadly. Is my suggestion. Uh, and secondly, important to place it right here on the table, that we are not thinking of individuals like Azim Premji or Jeff Bezos or even Warren Buffett's philanthropy here. Nothing about those sort of charities, or even closer home, our own Sonu Sood's heroic efforts. So there may be higher order benefits related to self satisfaction, fulfillment, etc. There's that these individuals may receive in exchange, but even for them, they are largely altruistic activities, and thus we are saying, let's just focus on organizational level efforts, sustainable social impact efforts, where marketing could play a role, such as Mahindra's Nanni Kali project for educating the girl child, or their own Seed the Rise campaign to promote young talent. ITC's flagship CSR program, eChopal, that has become the gold standard on community development. Unilever's sustainable living program, Tata Tea's Jagore at another level, PNG's Shiksha project, and so on. Hundreds of them, etc., etc. So that being the context, marketing, social impact, and organizational work. Let's just get started with the basics. Really opening it up for all your views. Why do organizations mount these exercises in the first place? And sure, we're talking organizations of all kinds, especially businesses. So when you are not for profit and you are in that domain, then it's all right. But businesses, why do they mount these exercises in the first place? Is it about imagery? Is it about just projection to the external world, optics? Or is it the 2% CSR rule that's pushing them to do so? Or is it about the business owners, their own drive or hubris, perhaps, that's pushing them to do this? What's really compelling the decision makers, objectively speaking? Why do these organizations need a higher order purpose now? What are they expecting in return? Knowing it's a very tough road to walk on. So why do they need to address social issues or causes or use even woke messaging in their communication is the first question. What do they get in return? Especially if we all know that intrinsically their business has no social cause connection. Does it drive brand health scores? Does it drive brand preference, sales, or does it drive nothing? So what are your views about the need and role for such
I think Vidu's screen is frozen.
Yeah, I feel the same too.
I think
Vidu?
Vidu, yeah.
Yeah, we're not able to hear him. Should we start talking?
Internet, so I'll just message him around here.
So should we start talking? Okay, you're back. Vidu, you're back. Yeah, you were frozen for a moment.
Okay, so I don't know where I lost you, but essentially I was saying let's open it up with a why question. Why do organizations do this, and what is it in it for them, particularly businesses? Is it about brand preference? Is it about sales? Is it about nothing? Is it about business owners own hubris? So let's just start by getting your views about what is in it for them. Social causes, particularly for businesses. If you have in your own preferred examples, including your own organizations or stuff that you may have done yourself, let's talk openly about it. And yeah, let's keep it freewheeling and informal. I won't want to do the old sexist thing, but if Anuradha or Kavita want to do this or take this on first, please do so.
I shall take it on. And the first thing I'll clarify is my name is Aradhana, like the Rajesh Khanna Sharmila Tagore film, and not Anuradha. So
sorry,
no problem.
Sorry.
So my thought on this is that why do organizations do messaging around social causes? I think we have to break them up probably into three kinds of organizations. One would be an organization where that way of life and that way of thinking is embedded in the business model. And I think on this panel at this moment, a lot of our organizations are like that. IKEA is like that. Lemon Tree is like that. Mandana also, being human, had that whole aspect of taking a person with disability in every store. That was the goal they had. So I understand that it's part of what we do in this group. Then the second kind of organization would be an organization whose main business is purely commercial. They're selling whatever, FMCG products or pharma or, I don't know, retail or whatever they're selling. But they believe that as part of their communication and connect with consumers, especially if the consumer is a little separated from them, which means that there are wholesalers and retailers in the middle. So they believe that their connect with consumers can be built around key issues. And one of the key issues, of course, is development, whether it's to do with the environment or it's to do with social causes. So the second kind of organization does their business, does their commercial stuff, but believes that in messaging they should carry it. And the third one, I think, would be, again, a commercial organization, but where the founder is someone who's driven and motivated a little differently. So it becomes a bit focused on that person. And I think we've seen enough examples like the Wipro example and so on, where their main business is what it is, but because that person who set up that firm believes in something, he starts driving that within the organization, and it's within and outside both. So as far as I'm concerned, the first kind and the third kind are obviously doing good work as well, right? That's because it's part of what they think of and what they believe in. And in the first case, it's part of the business model. The second kind, I guess it's the choice they're making. They may be taking up many causes. They might take up youth as a cause. They might take up sports as a cause. It could be anything that they feel connects with their consumers, right? So this is what I thought in terms of segregation. With respect to an example, I think right here between IKEA, Lemon Tree, and Mandana, you can have some very interesting examples. So I'll just mention Lemon Tree so that the other colleagues can speak about their businesses. So the way we've run this company for 18 years, I'm one of the founding team members, by the way, just wanted to put that on the table. So been here for 18 years. It's a young hotel company. We're in the 3-star and 4-star space. And today we're 84 hotels and we're in 52 cities. I just wanted you to know the scale. So the way we've built this company is obviously we're delivering 3-star and 4-star hotel services to guests, mostly business travelers and a little bit leisure. But we have embedded in the business all our thinking around sustainability. So whether it has to do with power in terms of reducing how much power you use and switching over to renewable, or it has to do with water in terms of recycling, reuse, and all of that, and reduction. Reduction is part of everything. Whether it has to do with waste management and so on. And even the way we build our hotels, how we built them 18 years ago to how we build them today, the materials we are using are environmentally friendly. So things have changed. We've always designed our hotels to be universally accessible, which means a person with disability can move around our premises very easily, a guest. And this is one side of the story. The other side is the work we've been doing on inclusion and diversity, which is what we're known for. And I think Deepak mentioned, he heard it a few days ago also in some context. So the inclusion piece I find very, very powerful, because the simple statement we're making is, if in society there are people with different needs and different abilities, then why not inside our organizations? We are also part of society, so why not in our organizations? But you cannot do this in a charitable sense, because if you do that, it will not be sustainable. You cannot have an HR policy which is running on charity. It doesn't make sense. So the whole goal was, how do we make this initiative such that it becomes part of the business model and your guests understand that this is the way you run the thing. Every team has deaf people, physical handicap, autism, Down syndrome, visually impaired, all kinds of disabilities are there, and it's part of your business. And the question you have to ask yourself is, does this mean that your service quality can change or can be reduced? The answer is no, it doesn't, because you have to deliver your business. You're a commercial, regular hotel company. You have to deliver your product and services to the quality that is expected of a 3-star and a 4-star. And the fact that it is being delivered through well-trained people who are with disability or special needs, this is an added bonus. So now coming to the communication aspect of this. We've not really used this as an advertising feature or something. Anyway, hotels don't advertise much actually. But even initially, the first maybe 7, 8, 9 years in social media also, or in the public spaces of our hotels, we would not say much about it. And maybe some journalists wrote about it, so that was good. Now we are feeling that in the last few years that it has become very relevant to society. And since the community speaks about it in any case, then it is okay for us to just increase the amount we're communicating. So you will notice if you follow our social media channels that every maybe 10, 12 times a year, maybe more, there will be some communication around either the environment initiatives or the inclusion initiatives. And what we have seen is this is helping us build brand loyalty as well. It was not done with that intention at all. It was done with its own intention, that it makes business sense to operate as a sustainable company. But we are finding now that the connection and the bond that guests are making with us, our consumers are making with us, is very, very powerful. And the evidence of this is whenever we do a brand survey, they answer, they tell us that we feel as though we are contributing in some way to the life of this boy or this girl because we are spending money in your hotel. or they say, okay, you guys are saving water in this way, and I feel as though I'm contributing to that process if I stay in your hotel. So we find this out through our brand surveys, and also we see that guests write a lot of public feedback on TripAdvisor, on Make My Trip, and other places, which are places you can put your feedback and your experiences, and they write very specifically about how either of these kinds of initiatives, the environment ones or the social ones, are impacting them and why they choose Lemon Tree again and again, and they become brand ambassadors. So there is a link between a company running its business model in an inclusive and a sustainable manner to brand loyalty. I believe there is a link. So this is how much I wanted to say. I know I spoke a lot. Sorry. This is how much I wanted
No,
to
no,
say.
that's
Thank you.
absolutely fine. No, that's the idea. Just please, go on and speak freely. I think that's valuable. So essentially, interesting case. Yes, I had heard about this approach that Lemon Tree Hotels as an organization has about working in this space of specially abled people too. Taking this forward, Kavita or Manish, maybe because both your brands, I do have a sense something to do with socially impactful work. Like Aradhana said, do you think a responsible brand per se becomes a little more preferred brand of your target audiences? Does it help? What are your views? And going, of course, with the earlier question too, why do your organizations or any other organizations that you know of get into the social space?
You want me to answer this?
Go ahead, Manish. I can go after.
Yeah, absolutely. I seriously think that the Gen Z is highly conscious and absolutely aware that how important it is to, support sustainability and support socio-environmental aspects in your day-to-day life and things that you consume and the way you carry out your business. So, I learned this very early in my career, when I was a garment and apparel exporter and a textile exporter, and I was really fortunate to have worked with some of the most respected companies and brands across the West and Europe. And it was early in 90s, and I realized that, we still, India was still not prepared for, understanding um, or barring a few organizations, they were not so conscious about consumptions, about emissions, about pollution, about all sorts of human rights. Of course, things have come a long way, and we have some world-class organizations operating out of here. But what I realized is that in the West, people valued taking care of the nature, taking care of the Mother Earth, taking care of the human rights, and valued life and valued all these aspects in a very big way. They would come and audit our factories, and apart from having basic necessities, which is hygienic toilets or great working conditions, rights to the workers, having various committees in the organizations, where which is a mixed gender kind of an environment, to have sexual harassment grievance committees formed. Apart from fire safety norms, and all other compliances that were required. They also gave a lot of brownie points to organizations who or manufacturing units that created recreation areas, or gave some sort of incentivized or I would say subsidized meals, crash facilities, medical facilities, and first aid, and so on. So I think when you put all this into your organization, it brings a huge sense of belonging into the community that works in your organization, and obviously the output results in a loyal and a product made out of passion and love and commitment. And I think that makes a huge difference for an organization. You gain a lot of respect, and you acquire some great, there's an acquisition of good customers resulting in that. So there's always a effect that comes back to you as in what you give. Moving forward. So having learned all that, and I realized the importance of creating a sustainable business which kind of takes care of the entire ecosystem around you, whether it's a social impact or an environmental impact. Uh, Simple things like uh, how you do the waste management in the factory, how do you take care of the water treatment plants, whether you recycle your water, are you using some solar equipment and some solar energy which kind of cuts in use of, I mean, the future, as we all know, is going to be of renewable energy, and that's the way forward. I don't know how many of you have studied what's ESG. ESG is environmental social governance, which is a huge buzzword at this point. I think organizations who have this certification in their businesses or in their products get, they are the most preferred, uh, um, uh, they attract the most preferred investments. And it gives you a lot of other benefits. People have built uh, carbon credit green buildings with sustainable materials, which gives them carbon credits. People have, created all sorts of, so, a part of their business is always going for a cause, and that's what we did with Being Human. I was very, very fortunate, and frankly, this subject is my favorite. It attracts me because I feel that when a business is done in harmony, taking care of everyone around you, I think you're going to flourish. And I was fortunate to, get an opportunity, having been in the textile business and working for the top high street brands across the globe. I thought it was time that India was ready for a retail revolution, and why not, explore the Indian markets. And I also saw the new generation who was more conscious, more aware, and a aspect of giving back always works if done in the right way. So I saw this as a great opportunity for me to exercise, those elements into something. And Being Human Foundation, which was formed by Salman, needed support to be thriving. And I said, why not create a social business? Why not create something beautiful where you profit out of the business that you create, and at the same time, as Aradhana mentioned very rightly, that any organization, if you need to give it back, you need to earn first. So there has to be a balance. You just can't do all charity and then go it then makes it difficult for you to grow. So when we built Being Human, we kept all this in mind, right from the store design, which had to be repurposed. We used old furniture, old props for visual merchandising, where you're not, letting things go waste and putting them to reuse, the reuse, recycle, repurpose policy. And every store had specially abled people who we called our special heroes, and they all had some great abilities, and we gave them opportunities to work in our stores. And it has to resonate with the brand name. We had a special line of organic clothes, organic t-shirts, which was our best seller, which would give a right message of supporting organic. Today the world is going back to basics, post COVID, and how people think, and we are all trying to live as simply as we can, and all the syntheticness of life is going away, and people are enjoying to go back and experience more of the old stuff. And uh, even the messaging in the brand was very, very clear. We created we put in the heart in the logo. We added words like love, care, share, hope, help, joy, created symbols, and all the graphics and graffitis on the t-shirts, we use those symbols in the labels, in the buttons, in the communication, in the tags. All our ad campaigns, we featured every season. We featured these young heroes who did something heroic and extraordinary, for this world in terms of philanthropy or environmental initiative, or anything that would, make an impact socially and environmentally. And we featured them alongside Salman Khan, and basically boosted the morale to, and boosted the youngsters to do more of this. So many such things. All our packaging was eco-friendly. We used recycled paper. Even the plastic that we had to use, we made sure that we used a biodegradable plastic. And apart from all this, having built the business successfully, we made sure that at least 6% of the top line went into the foundation, which helped causes of healthcare and education. So it would make a difference to the world, and it helped millions of people, due to that. So I seriously feel that the way forward to grow as an organization is to be having to be aware of these aspects, and it's a great feeling at the end of the day to have created businesses which have not only profited you but made a huge impact. So, I'm just sharing my experiences, and there are some great examples in the world. But like in India, I would say Tata Group, which is, gives back 70% to its, people that work for Tata, and other philanthropic initiatives. Then you have, something like a Lijjat Papad, which gives employment to so many women who are uneducated, who are in the villages and getting some bread and, earnings. And then there is, someone like, a Tom shoes, in the West, where you buy one pair and you get another one free. They give another one free to a poor kid in Africa. You have, guys like there's a eyewear brand called an eye for an eye, which gives away a free pair of glasses with, to people with vision problems or cataract issues, poor people. So I think every new business should have a story, should have a legacy, to gain that goodwill, to gain that respect. And that's how organizations, become immortal and live forever, if they imbibe this whole practice and, give a lot of importance to these things, and I will have a takeaway at the end. I have like 4 or 5 points which I have in my mind, and I would, uh, uh, probably say it in the next round of questions, because I want to give opportunities to others. But there's so much to talk on this is subject. But
Sure.
I think life is beautiful, and I think for me it's a morale boosting thing to do businesses which have something where you can give it back.
Great, lovely. So staying with the motivation part, and adding to what Manish just said, different businesses may have different motivations. But Kavita, you were about to say something, and I wanted to know if you agree with this notion, which is seeming to sort of appear around that straightforward, just buy me campaigns or approach of brands or businesses are possibly too mercenary, in approach these days. And I think your own business, as an the organization that you represent, IKEA, of course, has been doing this for millions of years, no?
I wish it was millions of years, Vidhu,
Yeah.
but it's only a few years. But I think it's two very interesting perspectives coming in from both Aradhana as well as Manish, and two very different dimensions that they've spoken about. Maybe I can just open up the third dimension on the why. And the way I look at it is, if you are an organization which is purpose-led, it is very much a part of your DNA. You're not just looking at the business, but you're also looking at what does it mean to my coworkers, my people who are really the foundation of running the business that you run. But what does it mean to the consumers, that you work with on a day-on-day basis? And then you expand that scope and start to look at what does it mean to the planet that we live in, particularly considering all the challenges that we see today in terms of the environment and planet and climate change and a whole host of things. So definitely for a brand and an organization that is purpose-led, it is very much a part of your DNA. And that is the starting point for IKEA as well. If you look at IKEA and the way it is established globally, all our profits can be invested back into the business, or it can be invested in different community and social cause-based initiatives, right? We cannot do anything else. We are not a listed company, and there is no other way in which the monies that are generated are actually used. So that is one aspect to it. And then maybe it is important to delve a little bit deeper into the second dimension. What does it mean to your co-workers, right? All the research that is coming in, and this is now so very well proven, that it is a huge motivation for co-workers to know that the organization is actually working and they themselves are contributing to various causes, right? And are making a small but meaningful impact to people's lives, right? Or to the planet in some fashion. So it is a huge motivation, and we can clearly see that, all of us have a certain responsibility in our regular jobs, but each employee has a certain discretionary energy, right? And that discretionary energy can be unleashed only if there is a motivation that goes beyond just the business, right? So that is one important dimension. And then the second thing, again, a lot of market research that's coming in recent times clearly highlights the fact that consumers want to associate with brands that, are making a meaningful impact in society, right? And maybe in the past, sometimes it was viewed that the Indian consumer did not care about it as much, but you can see that recent reports talk about over 60% of consumers in India want to know how large brands are contributing to causes beyond the business, right? So consumers also feel more engaged to work with a brand or to buy from a brand that actually is working on larger causes beyond, just making monies, right? And then the third aspect for us, the why behind it, is also the larger you get, the more responsibilities that come along with it, right? So if you look at global IKEA, every year more than 4 billion people come in touch with IKEA in some form or the other, right? That's a very large number. And then it becomes even more important for you to have, be more responsible, right? So then the question comes, what can we do in small and meaningful ways to create that impact? So with scale, with being a large brand, comes a huge responsibility that you are contributing to aspects that are beyond the core of the business, beyond, delivering growth and delivering profitability, right? And then finally, I think, it is only right to say that one can look at economic value added, but that economic value added is sometimes multiplied manifold when you are able to engage your coworkers and consumers in a better fashion, because you are engaging in social, in causes that are important to society or to the planet at large. And then actually your economic value added increases manifold, right? It is not impacted by it. And so those are the whys that we can continue to discuss. And then if you really start to look at a little bit of the what, within IKEA, the way we've looked at it is into 3 buckets, right? As an organization in the home furnishing space, we have a large array of products, but how can each of those products help people lead more sustainable lives in their everyday life, right? And that really comes from your vision in terms of saying that, the vision is about creating a better everyday life for the many people. And then if you are a home furnishing retailer, there are so many ways that you can impact that, right? So it could be a simple thing like a water saving tap in your home, or using a solar lantern for outdoor lighting, right? So there are so many small ways in which you could actually make that meaningful impact. And that is where, when you have a reach to 4 billion people, that is where the real big impact comes through. And then the second part is really about fair and inclusive, right? The world increasingly is more polarized. And then the question is, there are, all kinds of stereotypes that, that are present. And then how do you look at some of those elements, and how do you actually treat, whether it is co-workers, your consumers, or how do you work in the society at large with fairness and some level of equality that you're trying to strive for? And you can see that, for example, within India, we've looked at and taken the 50-50 gender equality in a very, very big fashion. And we are one of the few companies that is actually at 50-50 with close to 2,000 co-workers today across both, retail stores, distribution centers, and so on. And then the third aspect is really related to climate and what is the impact that you're making, whether it is a question of sourcing wood from sustainable sources in the early part of your value chain, or how are your stores set up, because we're talking about 40,000 square meter units, and how is the energy consumption working there? How much of water is getting wasted versus recycled? How much of renewable energy are we actually able to use in order to make a small movement towards being more climate positive? So those are the three buckets in terms of the what, but maybe we can dwell deep into some of the examples related to that at a later point. But for me, very clearly, the why is very, very clear. It starts with the purpose, it starts with your vision. It is about your two most important stakeholders, your co-workers and your consumers. And the larger you are, the greater the responsibility is.
Right, interesting. I think that was very well put. The purpose-led initiatives of IKEA are really sort of born out of its DNA itself. So that's pretty clearly sort of manifested and exemplified. Staying with the same Hari, since your domain anyway happens to be health, and in fact, I would think that practically every business worth its salt that wanted to do something which was sort of seen as responsible these days has sort of hijacked the theme of health by getting into the COVID related communication space. Do you think in these times COVID has taken our interest away from more enduring, more important perhaps themes of climate change or energy, or how do you see it?
Yeah, so I know that a significant number of strong views and perspectives have already come in. So, but let me just put in 2 or 3 points from my side and probably to take forward on what you said, Vidhu. See, I come from a behavioral science background. So the first point I will make is probably move away from a very business context into a slightly philosophical context. Okay, the nature of human beings is such that more often than not, whether it is individuals or organizations, when they make money, when they achieve a certain level of success, there is this question that they deal with deep within, saying that, do we really deserve this? Have I been really lucky? Because compared to many others, I seem to be doing so better. It can happen both individually and organizationally. And I worked with, like I said in the past, I've been with Satyam and Mahindras and Tech Mahindra and so on. So I think that sense of, have I been lucky, fortunate, and blessed to have achieved what I have achieved? Therefore, is there something that I can do for those who are not so lucky? Is an inherent thought that runs into all of us. That's a fundamental first thing that comes in my mind. And I know that whether it is in the Satyam days, we did what we call as leveraged technology for improving human effort. And we had adopted 400 villages, and we had brought in technology to give right from what you would call as water, mineral water at like 5 paisa per liter to bringing in employment for village youth to be able to do what we would call as a rural BPO and so on. Right now, what you're doing is you're saying you have some knowledge, some capability, and can you go out there and make a difference? I strongly believe that nobody comes to you saying, I want to do business with them. Nobody is an exaggeration. But very few people come to you saying that I want to do business with them because they do this. But what happens is that it makes your decision a bit more convincing and happy. I've seen, and we used to work with Fortune 500 and Fortune 50 customers globally, right? Whether it is Apple, Google, all of them. And the thought used to be, if you're doing so much of good, it makes my decision easier. It makes me feel good. Like when we started the emergency 108 facility across India, the thought was very high, saying that, oh my God, this is something that you have brought in technology to introduce emergency care, which India doesn't have. It made your technology prowess even more emphatic to others, and you were doing good, right? Same thing with Nani Kali in Mahindra, right? I mean, Anand always has this view about India, which has traditionally seen women as primarily homekeepers, and therefore education was not a priority for most of them. The idea was get to the field, get married, and move on with life. And he said, no, I want to change that, because if you really talk about diversity, you have to go down to the grassroots level. And today I have the ability to do what I do because You should remember that Nalikali started at a time when farm and farm equipment business of Mahindra was one of the biggest, right, within the group. Today, of course, other businesses have grown. But when farm equipment was the business, you're really talking about the hinterland of India, and which is why Kabaddi came in and stuff like that. You were touching the insides of India, and there was a good message to that audience saying, here is somebody who's trying to do good to us. Therefore, engaging with them makes sense. So I think that's the part. But surprisingly, Vidhu, I would say that now that I've been in healthcare, this is my 6th year in healthcare, and I come from the health tech side, not the hospitals, not the labs, not the pharmacy side. I can tell you I'm the most disillusioned guy in the sense that I haven't seen any dramatic social impact being done by any of the very large hospital chains or pharmacy chains and so on. They're doing stuff. Please don't misunderstand that they're not doing much. I mean, somebody is doing some foundations around stuff and so on. But compared to what the sector can do from a prevention and a wellness point of view, the effort is almost negligible. I mean, you talk about universal health coverage of WHO and India, every metric is pathetic compared to global standards. You will be surprised that the level of impact that the health care sector has done to change the world out here is truly very, very low. So good deeds and good actions make a lot of difference to how you have what I would call as reflected glory. Because you do good things, the fact that you make 20% margins, the fact that you make 32% EBITDA is acceptable, because they feel that there is something that you're also doing to the rest of the world. And I think that's the balance we all have to necessarily do. My sense is COVID specific impact has taken people's eyes off any larger causes for the time being. But that is only understandable given what we are dealing with. And I believe in another 6 months, when vaccination is probably sorted, people will come back to regular things that have always been a concern in this country. So to answer you, I see the need for it as something that makes us go to sleep well at night. Now, an organization is nothing but a collective set of individuals with a collective conscience. So when I make a few crores in my life, my feeling is I can spend a few lakhs for some people that I care for. When I make hundreds of crores in an organization, I feel that tens of crores can be spent for a good deed. So it's a very philosophical and a very normal thing to do. The healthcare sector can do a lot more, and the disconnect right now is understandable, because I think we are dealing with something which is unprecedented. We don't know how to respond to it, and therefore I think the lack of attention is understandable for the time being, but it will change.
Got it. That's an interesting perspective, talking about social impact done at organizational level and linking it to individual psychology or behavioral motivation. So interesting. Moving on. Again, we are saying social impact initiatives, need for them, motivation for them, now establish different things to different folks and so on. What about marketing these initiatives to whoever may be the stakeholders or audiences that we are talking about? What are the distinct challenges or opportunities rather in this entire space? Knowing full well that all of us agree that special causes or social causes such as these will need a more powerful marketing push than ordinary ones, because by definition there is no direct quid pro quo involved in these sort of things. So thus, do we think that organizations are using the power of marketing? And here we are saying the classical principles of marketing are being applied for marketing these social campaigns more impactfully. And again, maybe some large private organizations, commercial organizations may have the talent, available with them. But what about the other smaller ones? Particularly the advocacy groups, etc., who may be doing good, challenging, or valuable work, but they may not have that sort of talent available, or perhaps even just the affordability becomes a bottleneck. What can marketing help create more impactful campaigns for greater awareness and call for action? Uh, what are your thoughts in this entire area when we are talking about applying the classical fundamental principles of marketing to social impact projects or communications? Does it work well? Does everyone know how to do it? Is it happening well, optimally, or not? Any one of you? I won't really pick any of you, but you can take your pick. Whoever wants to go
I
first.
just have 2 lines probably on this, and I'm sure the others
Sure.
have probably far more stronger points there. See, the way I look at it is, what is marketing? Marketing is nothing but an articulation of the promise and ensuring that the performance matches the promise. Effectively, if there is a disconnect or a dissonance between promise and performance, then your marketing falls flat, and that's the reality. I believe a lot of activities that a lot of organizations do, I would translate it into the ability to create awareness and the ability to create an impact, very similar to promise and performance in that sense. I would think that, and I would be, like I said, I'm not trying to sound negative or come from I'm just doing a counter viewpoint on this. My sense is that the ability to create awareness has been disproportionately larger than the ability to create an impact by many of the organizations that run programs. So I would just say that while we are looking at this conversation and this point, the ability to not focus on the awareness and the noise around it, but the actual change in lives and the percentage of lives or the number of lives and stuff that has been changed would be a great point of reference to look at, right? And so I would think we should keep that in context. Otherwise, I know most of this will lead to how much of awareness we created, and that's really the power of intelligent marketing and the power of spending capability. But I just wanted to leave that as a thought as we set that conversation.
No, pertinent point. I understand what you're saying, and I agree with that. More so in my mind, I'm linking it back to the point that I think Kavita mentioned first about purpose-led organizational growth and the need for it increasingly in today's world. Now, a related question in my mind would be that are consumers or audiences for these businesses, are they aware of these things? Or do businesses, regardless, need to carry on doing this bit because it's responsible work, responsible way of doing business? And especially if you happen to be dealing with audiences that are far more spread out than just the urban elite, who may perhaps connect with these sort of purpose-led, communications of businesses much more. Is it across the board? For example, do rural audiences, just in case you happen to deal with them, do they really give a shit?
Actually,
really
yeah, so true. I'll give you an example, right? So, we run COVID remote monitoring programs. We did COVID health lines, as we called it, helplines and so on. And we ran it through both individuals as well as institutions. So we went to multiple organizations, manufacturing units, which are in the rural context, tier 2, tier 3 cities and so on. So if I had 100 conversations around providing a COVID health line or a COVID remote monitoring solution, I can tell you, and I'm not exaggerating when I say I noticed 5 or probably 6 organizations that truly cared about how many people called, how many people connected, what was the average handling time, what was the recovery pattern, and so on. 95 organizations signed the contract, started talking about it, and didn't care a shit about what happened. And in fact, when we were saying that, please go into these details and let's talk about how to improve it, nobody had the time to talk about it. They just wanted to have a tick box in their scheme of things to say, for my 10 villages in and around my plant, I have provided this service. They didn't bother whether it was done, but they didn't talk about taking it forward. But 5 organizations out of 100 would have shown the what I would call as willingness and enthusiasm to go forward and look at everything. Did it really make an impact? And therefore, the point I would make is it necessary to link that awareness and that conversation to actual ground impact. I think that's where I'm constantly, probably my comments are coming in from that experience also. And I'm saying whether it is energy saving, whether it is water conservation, whether it is related areas around child education, I am not sure whether we have been able to make that. Tech Mahindra, we used to run what we call as IT education for girl students in villages, so that we can get them data entry operator roles and so on and so forth. We had measures right up to the last level. What kind of salary ranges did they go to, and how many people got employed, how many people dropped off midpoint, etc. We had a set of measures that looked at impact. I'm not seeing that consistency across different areas.
Right. Interesting. The need for having some sort of metrics linked to this kind of work. And since Kavita and Aradhana both spoke about something similar in their organizations, maybe if I can ask them about the fact that the social thrust in your programs may not necessarily have a direct attribution to your revenues. Does it become a challenge while supporting these causes or these purpose-led initiatives for long?
Maybe I can share a bit on that with you. And just to spend a minute on your previous question, I mean, does the rural person really care about being purpose-led? I think everybody cares, right? It is in their own small dimension. Purpose-led could be a very big umbrella for an organization with many different initiatives as part of it. But at the end of the day, even if one or two initiatives are relatable to a single consumer, wherever they are, or even a non-consumer in that sense, it makes a difference, right? And that is exactly where, for example, the social entrepreneurship bit comes from, right? So when we are working with any of the social entrepreneurs, most of them are in far-flung locations across India, sometimes where our suppliers' locations are based and so on. And you can see that by involving them in this activity and getting them together, like for example, with both the social entrepreneurs we work with, there are close to 2,000 crafts people that we work with as well. But it is making a small and meaningful difference to their lives, right? Because of which it is in some ways impacting their livelihood, right? And we have many stories, and there is one very interesting story of one of these women who is who had some handiness in terms of craft, who wanted to work with the supplier who was working for IKEA but couldn't because her husband did not allow her to do. And it's a long story that goes on. But at some point in time, when she made this transition and decided to learn the skill and start contributing, it actually made a significant impact to their life, from living in a shed of some kind to actually being able to own a home, right? And of course, this was a transition over a 5-year time frame for this individual, but that is one way of impacting one individual's life, right? And then there can be many such stories. When you talk about 2,000 craftspeople in a country like 1.3 billion in India, maybe it is not a lot, but it is still, has a ripple effect in terms of others who are impacted by it, households, family, relatives, and so on. So I think it is not just a question of urban India versus rural India. It makes an impact on everybody's lives. But having said that, I think going on to your second question on how do we measure it, and is it measured, is it measurable? Of course, it is not very easy to measure. It is very challenging. But if you look at the 3 buckets, for example, the first one I was talking about is how do we impact the lives of our consumers, right? Who are consuming IKEA products, for example. So the question then has been, you buy a water saving tap, or you buy food containers to store your food so that you're not creating more food waste, right? These again are small ways in which you are making a difference. And one of the ways that we have looked at measuring it is to say that what percentage of your sales is contributed by products that help people lead a more sustainable life at home, right? Because this is something that each and every one of us can do, right? And then, right now we are at about 30%, right? And that is a significant number. And the ambition is how much more can we do? Maybe we can go to 50%, and that can make a significant difference, right? And then in all the other buckets as well, there are very clear measures, right? I was talking about fair and inclusive and talking about equality in the context of women. And the clear metric is, do you have 50% men to 50% women in your organization, or you don't? It is a black and white picture of what you actually do, right? And climate as well. I mean, if you look at the quantum of energy usage, or how much water you're wasting, and how much of your total energy consumption comes from renewable sources, or the carbon footprint, there are very many ways of measuring it and making an impact or making a difference in terms of how you can improve some of those metrics over time, right? So I would say that in all cases, it is not very easy to measure, but over time, there are metrics that we can use. The biggest advantage of having a metric is you're measuring something and then you find a way to improve it over time, right? Because if you don't measure something, you have no way to say, have you actually improved it or not? So that is how I would, kind of respond to your question.
Fair enough. I think that's again an interesting perspective. So staying with the planning and execution part of a workable model, wherein marketing principles are getting applied for running a meaningful social marketing program. Let's just try and break it down into actionable things. If you're championing one such project or initiative in your organizations, individually, what or how can classical marketing strategies and frameworks be applied to such campaigns? Whether again, they could be small social cause campaigns or large environmental issues. Are there any new models for collaborative work between social marketers and the various agencies or specialist partners that you could use that will help you drive better results? uh, Going down to really the brass tacks, earlier it just used to be about using television or offline media of that nature for such campaigns amplification. But now there is a surfeit of channels or choices available. Internet and social media have emerged as very, very powerful media. Particularly if you're talking about this entire subject of two-way interaction, you trying to send out a message by doing something which you think is good, but does it resonate on the other side? Do you get engagement? Do you see a role for them? So let's hear your views about how do you maximize the role of these principles. How do you use these classical marketing principles when implementing, executing, and strategizing for these sort of campaigns? Aradhana, if you want to go first.
I'll make an attempt. So what I understand from classic marketing principles is that you have a product or a service and you want to communicate this to your target market, and the method of communication would be based on consumer behavior. So it depends on your industry. So we're talking about different industries here on this panel right now. So in some cases, social media becomes the all-pervading way of doing it. In some cases, traditional advertising, whether it's TV, print, whatever, is also required. In some cases, it's more a PR exercise. So you engage with media, you engage with larger forums, and you take your message forward. So it really depends on the industry. Actually, it's hard to make a general answer to this. So what I can see is that depending on the nature of your business and depending on the industry, you will use the appropriate channel. So if I take an example of hotels, and maybe I'll try to give another example also. So in the case of hotels, there's no such concept really of TV advertising, and print advertising is very limited. It's specific magazines and very few occasions you would use a newspaper. You wouldn't actually. Those kind of messages are not going to really be about your social impact. Those messages will be very specific. It could be to do with maybe a new launching or an acquisition of some set of maybe hotels or whatever. It could be at the time you're going to IPO and so on. Those would be the occasions to use those very traditional methods of advertising. The way a hotel company would address any messaging is really through social media and through this whole new creature, I'm using the word with respect, called influencer. So influencer marketing has become very important in many industries. I'm sure it's relevant to retail. it's relevant to fashion, it's relevant to food, and it's relevant to hotels, definitely. So what we have seen in the last 5 years, let me just talk about the experience of the last 5 years, though our sustainability thought process and working has been going on for 15 years, 18 years, but still, let's talk about the last 5 years, is that, as Manish also mentioned earlier, today's generation has become so much more aware of the whole idea of sustainability, and it's not only aware, it is the choice they are making. For example, I have friends from school and college whose children would now be, say, 20 or whatever, and the kind of summer assignments and projects they are choosing, it's really got nothing to do with an FMCG company or anything. They are choosing that they will work with a social enterprise who does literacy programs of street children. And in the hot summer, 45 degrees, they will go under a flyover and they will go teach those children. I'm like amazed. I'm like, how is this happening? And I've noticed this for at least the last 5-6 years. So if that's how your potential consumers are thinking, so in the case of a hotel company like ours, our target market includes the business traveler, not the ultra top management, because they would go for more of 5 stars and deluxe hotels. So we are targeting middle managers, essentially, maybe a couple of senior guys, and we're targeting the young travelers. So if that's the way that they are thinking, then if we reach out to them through social media, through YouTube, of course, very important, and through these influencers, we will be able to get our message across. Now, as I mentioned earlier, a company like ours, where this is embedded in the model, we are not trying to make it a marketing story. We're really not. And in fact, our chairman is he's not media shy, but he's shy of pushing this story too much. He talks to the media a lot, but he doesn't want to get aggressive about pushing this story. So we use our own social media channels. Sometimes the influencers are very interested in sustainability and in water saving, in inclusion, and therefore they will build their story around that. It works for us. But every blogger or influencer we work with doesn't do it. Some of them are very hotel focused and food and travel and beautiful destination and all of that. So that's fine. So I feel that these mediums today are very relevant to a number of industries, and they are very low spend mediums. You have to spend some money, obviously, you can't do it for free, but the money you put in and the bang for the buck that you get is way better than in our kind of industry to have to go to print or TV. It's not feasible to do that, actually. TV is out, really, but to go to print even, it's not very feasible. But in the case of an FMCG company, it would work differently. In the case of a real estate company who's into housing, for instance, it would work very differently. So I imagine that they would use traditional marketing tools to get the message across. And while we should not make it our key message should remain whatever our brand essence is. So we are a very affordable hotel brand, and our quality and our hygiene and our standards are very high. So that's our key message. We should make sure that that's going out there, because in the end, they are not coming to buy this concept that you're using solar energy. They're coming to stay in your hotel and spend the night. The fact that you're using solar energy makes them feel much better about their choice. So I think we should communicate in the best way we can through the channels relevant to our industry, but we shouldn't get only focused on that, because everyone knows we're a commercial organization. I want to just address a small point you mentioned about developmental organizations who may not have enough funds, NGOs and such partners, who may not have enough funds available to do traditional marketing. So I believe they don't need traditional marketing. They need two kinds of things. One is they need the message to get out there. So it's okay if they do a couple of videos, put them on YouTube, keep doing relevant messaging on their social media channels. Sometimes they don't have enough followers, actually, but it doesn't matter, even whoever has it, because what happens is then news channels start picking up stories like that. That's how it works. Because if they see a little bit of traction on something, or they see an interesting story, then maybe a Quint or somebody else will pick it up, and then it'll become viral. The way I think a social organization, not a commercial one like ours, the way a social organization can work better is if they can find a hook somewhere and somehow get it to get viral, even if not their channel, but through some other public channel, then it'll work better. The other thing they have to do is proper activation on the ground. So that's not marketing. That is proper activation in terms of mobilization of people, in terms of setting up camps, maybe partnering with some school or government department, depending on what they do. Maybe they do health, maybe they do sanitization, maybe they are into education. I don't know what the purpose of that organization is, but they'll have to get their hands and feet out there, because that's actually its own marketing. You know, it's a visual, it's an idea that in our city, if you see every Sunday in government schools, this particular NGO or this particular non-profit comes and does blah, 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 whatever they do. So I think that might work very interestingly, that your on-ground activation becomes your marketing tool for such organizations. And of course, social media, Zindabad, it will always help us and get the message across. Thanks.
Right. Interesting.
If I can...
Yeah, sorry, just before that, a quick time check. I assume all of us are still okay and nobody is in a hurry to pop the beer can just yet, because we've just overshot
I have to get somewhere, so I will have to stop in about 10-12 minutes roughly.
So let's
I have the same challenge, Vidhu. I need to run because I have a vaccine schedule after this.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. All the best.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, but the points that Radha was talking about are quite interesting, and you know, their companies at least reticence to talk about such things. In our industry, for example, it had become fairly you know, sort of common that if you wanted to go for award-winning advertising, then you would just pick up a social cause and talk about it. So it's so much so that it became gimmicky. So thus, you know, what is hyperbole and what is realistic stuff, and how do you separate the two? Moment marketing kind of things, does it work? What is right, what is wrong? If your thoughts you know, can be expressed here. Kavita, you first, and then Manish, of course, and there is Hari, quickly.
Sure. I think you know, when we talk about some of the elements of social impact, the question for me is, how do we weave these messages into everything that we put out there, be it you know, paid media, it could be earned media, PR that Aradhana was talking about, or it could be our own media, our website and our social media platforms, and what we do in that context. Because we have, you know, I think in Delhi, you still don't see the IKEA ads maybe on television or on the papers yet, but I think both Hyderabad and Mumbai are already experiencing it. And you can see that, let's say we're running a recruitment campaign. Every one of our recruitment campaigns will always show, you know, the aspect of equality. The ad will have men and women. Let's say we are hiring for a forklift driver job. There is a stereotype, right? A forklift driver is a man, right? And then we would always make sure that we are putting a woman forklift driver, because even at that particular segment, we actually have 50-50, right? And that really creates a very different perception in the mind of the reader on what it means and why it is important. You might not apply to the organization, but that message stands out and it does something psychologically in your head in terms of what it means to you, right? The second important thing is an example of a social media campaign. I think we were running one on equality, which was about 50-50. And we tried to use gamification in the process. It was on Instagram. And the idea was, we are a home furnishing company, so we always want to talk about the home. But we put this out to say that, you know, can you and your partner talk about the chores around the house and what do you like to do, right? It again brings out stereotypes, right? You know, people often ask, oh, as a woman, you can't cook, or, oh, you don't cook at home. Or, you know, if it is a guy, there's a question of, oh, you don't drive, right? These are the stereotypes that exist in society. And the question was, by allowing so many consumers to talk about it in a gamified fashion, you are actually creating awareness, right? And until that point, you don't realize the thoughts and the stereotypes you actually have in your head, maybe. Right? And then there could be, you know, other aspects. For example, we launched on sustainability something called as a Better Living app, right? It was about asking our consumers to download the app and put down various activities they did around the home, and how did they contribute to saving water or saving energy or something of that sort. And it was amazing to see that we had run the campaign for a month. They were like, India topped the charts in the IKEA global world. Of course, we have the power of numbers in terms of the number of downloads and the interactions that were there. But what was very interesting is, I think we had about 500,000 tons of CO2 saving in 1 month of people just putting down what they did every day at home. Right. And that is how, and we are today present in 2 cities. So most of these campaigns run in these 2 cities. And, so these are small little examples in terms of what you could actually do. And even in a very commercial ad campaign, if you look at the last ad campaign, which is about life stages, and we have this campaign showing an expecting mother who's staying with her husband and a son at home. The ad campaign shows her working at her desk, right? And the husband and the son are getting ready to welcome the new baby into the home, right? And it is exact role reversal, right? The stereotype that might exist in most other minds is exactly the opposite of that. So these could be still, I feel, meaningful ways as even part of commercial advertising, where you can still carry a message that is around one of the elements of social impact that you want to create. Yeah, so I will stop there. I will not talk more because I think we are totally running out of time here.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Manish. Any insights about how to do these things slightly differently for social initiatives?
Manish, you're on mute, Manish. Manish, you're on mute.
So for me, the key takeaways from the esteemed panelists, I think they all made some beautiful, relevant points. Kavita, Hari, and Aradhna, and I think whatever you said makes a complete sense. And post-COVID, one should expect, especially in the consumer business, a return to sincerity in design, and a rediscovery of purity. And brands will have to adopt a model that is less bloated and wasteful in order to survive. And so simplicity is the key. And there is a certain correlation between a brand's values and cultural relevance and its revenue. Uh, one needs to build a brand's cultural relevance by being part of the conversation on social media, be an editorial brand, and create your own content for long-term success. And this is what I feel. And now consumers even consider the experience while buying a product, especially the Gen Z. One needs to consider alternative packaging of options, recycled old into new via circular fashion. Personalization is the future of businesses and products, capturing consumers attention through content that feels and looks new, and basically tell a brand story. And lastly, I feel that let's look at the importance of purchasing practices and how brands can establish supportive partnerships with suppliers. Sustainability also includes workers' rights, and one can begin by being very conscious by reducing overproduction and wastage. Actually, the first step towards sustainable fashion, future, is to create with what is already available in access. And one needs to one needs to look at the communities that market your goods and you make money off. How can you help them? How can you serve them? Make the bottom line humanity. And now is the time to bring this community together and a network to unify basically everyone into it. And those are my thoughts.
Great. Hari, before we end, I do remember your point about the lack of offline and on-ground activation, for the last, whatever, maybe 15, 18 months, severely impacting the creative expression and so on. So talking about marketing techniques for social initiatives, closing thoughts?
So I think like what Aradhana was mentioning, that from now we are going to see more and more of social media expression. I think the methods and means of that expression may change, but I am very certain that the ratio of offline will be dramatically lower. We are starting to see, for example, we started off an effort called Call Health Talks, where we are now engaging experts to talk about different areas which could help in preventive care. I think the biggest issue about healthcare has been about curative focus. Curative and episodic, those are the two, if I may say so, the pain points of current system. So we're trying to make it into preventive and continuity and perpetuity. That's what we're looking at. So we're bringing in some play on that, I think, but I'm seeing, at least in our sector for now, for sure, a significant adoption of the social media, and it will come in different ways and means. It will come, I'm sure, both from the point of view of whether it is social media sites like the Instagrams of the world, or whether they are going to be specific to what you would call as health forums and so on. I think that's online is going to be a greater play and offline is going to be less, because you have access to beyond boundaries in social media. That's the biggest thing. We are not restricted to a given area. Second is the awareness can be, like I said earlier, disproportionate to the actual impact. And today, I think people are getting caught up in that, and that's what's going to help. So I'm just going to say that that's where you will see the bigger focus. I know we are off time, so I don't want to pull further on.
Thank you very much, everyone, for a bag full of stimulating thoughts and ideas. I'm sure Hari would have a lot of fun putting this paper together. So Hari, Deepak, all yours.
No, thank you very much. I think, usually post the conversation, we try to know the leader a little bit more, but what a conversation and a diverse panel. It was a great learning. I think humanizing business and everybody is doing that. I think it's amazing. So thank you very much, everyone. I know we little